Hey everyone, welcome. Good afternoon. I hope you're ready to be energized and to energize. I see a bunch of people just checking in. I bet they're all finishing their afternoon 2 to 3 meetings. So I'm just waiting for some people to trickle in. And in the meantime, I'm going to be a soapbox. Some suggestions. Get something to drink, and this is carbonated water. This is what I live on. But if you're doing caffeine or whatever that potion is for you at 3 in the afternoon, that helps you get through the rest of the day, grab one of those. I do suggest getting something to write with. Although we will be sharing actively on the Q&A. So we're not going to be having an active chat box, but if you click on the Q&A, we actually are going to be working together on that. Other than that, there's going to be quite a bit to cover here. And the nice thing is it's very interactive. So it would be amazing to just hear from you as and when I prompt you. Or if you have a question, I'll keep trying to check Q&A. This is a relatively new platform for me. And I just want to make sure that if I'm switching screens, I'm not aware, I will come back to the Q&A and get to you. Okay, it's top of the hour. Just let's give this a few more seconds before, and there's more and more people coming in before I share my screen and we can get started. Thank you for that thumbs up. Amazing. I see Q&A. Sangria. Yes. You know what? Whatever works for you is fine for me. Nobody has to know, you can even maybe you can use like a mug to kind of hide that if you're around some people and don't want to, whatever works. Oh, you like the mug? Okay. This is a mug that says galvanized. I belong to a fabulous group of people called the Galvanized Group. And we're a bunch of entrepreneurs that get together and kumbaya every once in a while. So we have that mug ready and present to energize us. So we're going to get started here. I'm going to share my screen. And let's get this show on the road. All right. So I'm very grateful that you've all come to join me on a subject that is extremely important to everyone these days. Doesn't matter what age they are. We're observing all around the world how people are struggling to change their game with energy management. The good news is that more and more people are actually getting more aware as to why this subject is so very important, all the way from the top layers of organizations where executives are being taught how to manage energy, all the way down to our children right now, and us having to really teach them how it is that they can focus more and pay attention more, and how they play with their own mental and physical energy. So today's subject, we're going to go through a bunch of exercises together, which will be very introspective for you. At the same time, I'll be imparting quite a bit of knowledge as well and things to think about. But you'll find that most of my slides are not very busy, and so it's a little bit more easy on the mind at this hour. Let's just introduce some ideas here, right? And see how they settle with you. For some of us, this may settle really well. For some of us, depending on where we are in our life journey, may feel like really awkward and foreign. So the idea that you are made up of the same energy as everything around you is not something that every one of us grew up with. But as we evolve through our experience and so on, you may have heard maybe through your spiritual community or any other, the books you read, this is what I'm reading right now, The Possible Self. Highly recommend that one by Maha Jikvik. Yeah, great one. Talks about the importance of us feeling one with one another as well as everything around us. And that takes some work. Like, how do you do that, right? Because we're so vested in our physical body. So the idea that you are made of the same energy as everything around you has a certain freeing element to it, a freeing sensory feeling to it, which leads to, as you hear some words, ease, flow. When you're in the flow of things, the sense of belonging that you feel in certain environments and not others. The idea that you're all integrated and part of one big thing, the idea of oneness, is something that I'd like you to sort of park on one side as we go through this, because we will be keep coming back to that, okay? And as you think about that idea, think about how separate do you feel from things around you? How numb, disconnected do you feel from certain people, certain things around you? Because all of that is energy blockage around you. A second idea, and you might have heard this one as well, being actively taught these days now, thank God. Managing energy, not time, is what leads to an empowered state. So here's the key word, right? You're managing energy, not time. And by doing that, you're empowering yourself. And most of us these days need that sense of empowerment because we always feel like we're being pushed in this rat race and we don't feel very empowered in many cases based on the 600 things we got to do in a day. So the idea of getting empowered by managing energy and not time is what leads to a constant state of feeling ownership, confidence, capacity, and productivity. So these are some of the things that we look for to gain control over and stay in that space of being confident and feeling like you have some rope to give here. And that state comes from an idea of managing energy and not the finite resource of time or other finite resources such as we always manage as time, money, things like that. Those come and go, but energy is renewable. Okay. And so along those lines, this is one of my favorite quotes around energy. Um, Jim Lower has done some amazing work in this space. If you want to look him up, he really teaches workplaces how to generate energy. And so here's a quote that says that the ultimate measure of our lives is not how much time we spend on this planet, but rather how much energy we invest in the time that we have. Right? So I always picture this as like time is a box, right? Starts here, ends here every day, 24 hours. But the energy that flows within that time is very much something that is renewable and can be circulated and can be redirected. And that sense of freedom that you feel when you start playing with energy as opposed to time is what he's referring to, is the ability to know what you want to do in any given period of time and being able to do that instead of what everything else demands of us. You are in some incredible company, as I am today. And one of the things we do when we seek registration from you on these webinars is to find out what brought you here. And so here are some things that people shared with us when they were registering for this webinar. Just as you read through them, you might see yourself in some of these, right? As you read through this, I'm just going to tell you that what we gather from here is that we lose relationships when we tend to drain other people without our knowing that we are draining people of many different things, but that they feel a sense of not feeling like they're moving forward when they're around you. This is when there's this turnover of relationships that happens in our life. A lot of us struggling with energy, be it mental, physical, emotional. Some of you are here to find out, how do I conserve my energy? And we're going to be talking about that towards the end of this presentation. And not only just conserve it, but then use what I have intentionally and purposefully. We're going to be talking about that towards the end of this presentation as well. Some really good practical tips on how you can do something on a given day and feel like you are actually more in control of your energy levels. And then you're in environments where you're like giving you 100%, like this is the level best you can do. And yet you aren't seeing the results. You're not feeling happy. You're feeling exhausted and depleted. So there's some of that inspiration that's brought you here. And then I love those that just come for, hey, you know what? This is a growing opportunity for me. I like learning new things. So we'll be talking about some of these things later on because they're all different types of energy. But before I jump too far deep into that and get to our main topic today, a lot of you don't really know who I am. And so I like to just quickly do this. And while you read, you can read as much as you like. I'm not going to be talking about those bullets on the side there. That's me, like in like 7 bullets right there. But I get asked this question a lot. And it's interesting that the older I get, the more I get this question, which is kind of funny, right? People ask me all the time, where do you get all this energy? And yes, like you, I do have an overflowing plate, or depends if I perceive it that way. Or sometimes I just feel like I have the right amount of stuff on my plate just because I know that I have control over my energy and where I put and what I put in any given hour, any given minute. So I will tell you that mastery of energy has happened over a number of years because before I could master it, I had to get aware of it. And my journey of awareness really came from what you see down there is 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth bullet there, where I was going through a major crisis in my life at age 30 for the first time as an adult, feeling like I checked off all the boxes and everything. And suddenly, yet my life was crumbling with my divorce. And that really just kind of took me out and saying, you know, I was supposed to go this way and it looks like I'm not going this way and I'm going to go this way. And that's not what I planned for. And started to find that I was lacking agility in my way of thinking. And so I embarked on this long journey since the age of 30. And the more I embarked on that journey, and the more I unfolded and studied and listened and experimented, I found that leaps and bounds of energy were being created and redirected based on my choices. So let's talk about what the world today is looking for. Most of you, as I understand, are in some form of your working life. And today, human skills in the age of AI look something like this. So if you thought that these human skills were going out of fashion or out of style, they're not. In fact, in the age of AI, leaders are looking more and more so for people who can demonstrate these qualities every day for themselves as well as to others. And if you notice, a lot of these actually have very little to do with you. They actually have to do with others. For example, if it's asking you to show empathy, it's show empathy to others. If it's asking you to be able to negotiate and persuade others. If you want to resolve conflict, it's got to be with others. So it's interesting how these skills really, while they need to be cultivated by each of us, they really have to do with our interaction and our energy exchange with other people. And so I have this tagline, and many of my slides you're going to see at the bottom. You might like to capture these because they make a lot of sense for me. I find them very inspiring. So what these skills say is, I got to optimize me. When I optimize me, I can transform something bigger than me. It's very us focused. And recently, I just gave a talk to the Toronto District School Board. For those of you not from Canada or from Toronto, this is the largest school board in Canada. It oversees hundreds of schools in this city. And I spoke to their leaders and their parent councils 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about how we can enable Gen Zs and the Alpha generation to be able to cultivate these skill sets as they go into the working world, because God knows that Gen Z did not have that opportunity, neither did all of us. Nobody taught us this stuff in school. And why? While we're seeking all these qualities, here's what the stats look like. And I don't like to throw a lot of numbers at you. I'm just going to let you see that about half of our workforce today in 8 different countries is suffering from burnout. Right? And you can see the percentages by generation in the second bullet. Somewhere between 40 and 60% of the main demographics, main age groups in our working world are suffering from burnout. And the third bullet just kind of tells you, the 3 top professions in which they are observing burnout. Why are we talking about burnout? Because burnout is just the result of sustained stress, sustained overwhelm, undealt with churn that happens with us emotionally and mentally, and really, really depletes our energy levels. So I started my startup at Anvaya because I wanted to address this. And because I felt that after all of my work in 30 years as a corporate leader, having led so many teams and people and mentoring so many people and youth, I felt that these are the 3 things we really want to cultivate as a society. We want to cultivate self-reliance. And I'm sure you'll all agree, we are suffering from a leadership crisis today. Look where you want. So how do we bring self-reliance and leadership back into our society? How do we have other people drive change from self-change? How do we teach people that? And how do we create more and more powerful and positive influencers? So for me, these are sort of the 3 pillars of Anvaya, which is the startup that I run now, and the Aura Experience, which is our flagship program, which so many people are now taking since last year. And you can go to our website and check out their testimonials and their journeys even today. What's different about us? Well, we decided we should teach what school did not teach us. Many of us did not learn these four other intelligences. We were taught to leverage our IQ. And so we became super book smart. And some of us were born street smart based on how we were raised. I wasn't very street smart. I was very book smart. But I got into the working world, and not even before I went to university, I started feeling like this challenge that was happening within me, this dissonance, this lack of understanding. And where did that come from? It was from not understanding my cognitive intelligence, which, rightly in this diagram is placed at the front of the brain. This is where we leverage our IQ to make positive impact. And that is an intelligence. And it is a place where we work from every single day, where most of our best work comes from. The back of the brain, or what I will refer to as the middle of the brain, right? Many of us know our middle brain is dealing with our fight or flight responses. It has to do with challenges and change. How well do you cope with adversity? The bottom back part of our brain, which really is where our emotions come from, and our emotional intelligence, and how self-regulated are we, and how well do we adapt our responses. Last week's webinar really dove deep into not just being intelligent emotionally, but how do we get agile emotionally, and that's a completely other different ballgame. And finally, of course, everything that we think and we feel and we experience, we express. And whatever we express is a form of energy, our social intelligence. So at Envia, in the Aura experience, we take this approach of teaching these four other intelligences and how we integrate those into our daily lives, in our habits, in our choices, and many of the other big things that we do every single day. We're going to be tying this later in this presentation to energy. So in a nutshell, people ask me, what is Aura experience? And I always say to them, you know what? This is going to teach you how to observe, release, and activate energy. Well, why do I have to observe it? Well, because if you can't see what you want to get a handle over or understand, then you can't actually manage it. So observing energy is the first step. Being able to release energy that does not serve you, or energy that's in your space that is not serving you, is what really leads to burnout. Keeping that energy knowingly or unknowingly in your space. And when you can release something, then there's space for something else. And that's when we can activate energy the way we choose. All right, let's get over here. We're going to come to the Q&A in a second, so just keep typing there. I'll catch up with you here. Why do you want to learn this? Why do you want to get on this path of observing, release, and activating your energy? It's simple. We all want to live sustainably. We don't want to go downhill as we age. In order to remain sustainable physically, mentally, emotionally, for our kids, for our partners, for everyone we care about, and for everything we wish to do, we actually have to build sustainability in our days. The second is we all seek to be understood in everything we do. The profession we're in, the partners we choose, even with our own kids as they go through their growth journey, we seek to be understood by others. I mean, it's one of those very primal needs we have, being born on this earth. And thus we communicate, and how we communicate leads to understanding or misunderstanding. And relevance is important. How relevant are you going to stay? How much of your growth journey will you get to explore? Energy management allows you to explore what will keep you relevant, will keep your focus on the right things, you growing in the direction you want. And through all of these three things, what I personally experience every day is a sense of fulfillment, which I believe is also something that each one of you would be looking for. It's at the end of this presentation, by the way, I have this beautiful checklist about fulfillment that I go through 6 questions every night to figure out just how fulfilled do I feel. Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop sharing here, and I'm gonna ask you this question. Do you know your biological prime time? Do you know what that is? And do you know what it is? I'll stop sharing because when I'm in this screen, I can't see Q&A. So let me do that. All right, where are we with our Q&A? All right, people, BPT, what is it? If you don't know, type it for me in the Q&A and say, I don't know what that is. And if you know what it is, then we'll move to the next question. See, this is where if you don't talk to me, I literally cannot move forward. If you don't know, say, I don't know. What is it? Yes, capital letters. Yes. All right. Thank you. So biological prime time sounds really grand, but it's a very simple concept. Okay. Biologically, every single one of us has a time that's a prime time. This is when we are at our peak effectiveness. Okay. And our peak productivity and our peak creativity. And everyone has a different part of the day that they feel that this is my time to be the most inspired and the most engaged. So that's your biological prime time. I'll give you an example. For me, it's somewhere between 5 a.m. and pushing it maybe noon. Okay. And by the way, my mental fitness practice has allowed me to grow that window. It wasn't as big before, but for me, it's between 5 and 12. It's a 7-hour gap there to do a lot of work, right? And then after 12, a little bit of dip. And it has nothing to do with my diet because I fast, right? Most of you might know I fast like a lot of hours, but I hydrate a lot. And somewhere between noon and 2, I'm starting to level off. But then after 2 is when I'm starting to say, you know what? I need to go work out. I need to move. I need to go do my breath work. I need to go, I don't know, go have a coffee with someone. So if you can type in for me, now that you know what it is, because then that's going to take us to our next question. What is your BPT? Just give me the window. Morning, morning, morning. 7:30 to 10 a.m. 8 to 11:30 p.m. Oh, you mean in the evenings. Oh, okay. So that's 8 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Got it. Awesome. You will never find me in an inspired state at that hour unless we're partying somewhere. Love yoga. Morning. 5:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. All right. I know. Yeah. So there are superhumans who can actually work from 5:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. And I've seen them and I know what their practices are. And we're going to get you there if you want to. I'm personally not one who wants to do that, but there is a way to expand your BPT is the point here. Okay. So, and here's some really good input from someone. Sometimes there's a second wind. Exactly. So you may have a 5 a.m. to 12, and then around 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., you might actually be on a second wind to do the same level of inspirational work. So next question then. Do you consciously look at your calendar? Do you plan what you do within your BPT? Do you own your calendar, knowing where your state of mind would be at any given point in time in the day? Because I structure my days, and I even, if I get a phone call for an appointment, like let's say it's a doctor's appointment, I purposely pin windows, even if it's 2 months ahead of time, at a certain time in the day. Do you do that? I want to hear from you guys. What kind of work do you do in your BPT? Like, do you actually plan your calendar around that? While you write, and you are, here's something I do. I reserve my creative time. Things like, hey, what am I going to talk on my webinar? I really want to make it very exciting and energizing and some cool things to think about and inspire other people. I do that by blocking off my morning. Usually by 10 a.m., I'm done with that. Then there's meeting time. Now there's types of meetings. There's meetings that you have where there's going to be an information overload. You're going to need to brainstorm. You need to, so that's what happens between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. And I will block my time for conversations like that. as opposed to less energizing conversations that have to do with status updates and maybe somebody's complaint and that kind of thing. Then I start to push those into the 12 to 2 p.m. window. Okay. So the idea here being that you can own your energy in this very small way of understanding when is my BPT and how am I going to slice and dice that time frame and what can I push off. Things like doctor's appointments can wait till 3 in the afternoon. So that's what I do. I don't place it on my calendar before that because my real estate every day in terms of BPT is super important. And that's how I go to bed at night most days, feeling like I owned my time and my energy. Thank you for sharing here. So let's talk about next. We talked about this. I'm going to share my screen again because now we're going to get to the main part of this presentation. And you're going to say, Vishali, how you're not sharing your screen? Let me do that. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so let's talk now about the currency of energy. And I want you to start thinking about what we talked about, managing energy, not time. Energy, infinite, renewable. Time, finite, countdown, depleting. When you think about how much of that you got to keep on top of, right? So let's talk about changing our perception around the currency of energy. It is important to learn about something when you want to change your perception about it. So I'm going to give you some really cool things to think about here. First of all, there are 4 aspects to your energy. Sounds simple, right? There's your physical energy, there's your emotional energy, there's your mental energy, and there's your spiritual energy. But here's a part you probably didn't touch on. Physical energy is associated with the quantity of energy. So if you find like, I don't have a lot of energy, I just feel like I don't have enough energy, think about your physical energy first. When we think about emotional energy, we're thinking about the quality of our energy. Is it a negative energy? Is it a depleting energy? Is this where you're draining other people's energy? This has to do with the quality of our energy. It too is something that has to be nurtured. Mental energy has to do with our focus. We just talked about this place here. Many places of mindfulness talk about focus. They even point here. They point to our third eye. Why is that? Because this is where we do our inspired work. And a state of inspiration comes from a state of being focused on the right things at the right time that we care about. And finally, there's spiritual, which is the force, right? This is not your breeze. This is your hurricane when you need it, right? Or when you need it to be a breeze, you can do that. So being able to be malleable with the force of your energy comes from a sense of spirituality. These 4 centers of energy, we all have. Some of us are not fully aware of how to nurture all 4 elements. I've put next to this something that was pretty cool and maybe a bit more relatable if it works this way, because we all learn differently. This is Maslow's hierarchy. Most of us learned this in business school or some school, psychology school, whatever, right? And what this says essentially is that at the base level are our physiological needs: food, water, shelter, that kind of thing. And when we have food, water, and warmth and so on to be physically able, then we can actually think about our safety and our security. Things like our employment, family, those things, that our health that gives us safety and security, all of that would come second. Now, just think about where you are in the world, because we live in a first world country. I think sometimes I really question that. But if you were in a third world country, everyone that is without money and food is only thinking at that base level. When we have those first 2 things, then we come to a place where our priorities could change and we think about self-esteem, love, belonging. This is where our mental and our emotional energy becomes something that we care about and that we can play with. Until then, we don't really care. If I don't have food and I can't live to the next day, I'm not going to care about belonging anywhere. And when we get all these needs satisfied is when we actually are able to think about self-actualization. Now, why do I put this beside what I just explained to you? Because if you think about it, our physical needs, which is our quantity of energy, depends very much on us taking care of our physiological needs. Okay? So just think about mental energy, emotional energy in the yellow and green versus our physical, which is really our base needs, orange and red. And then there are spiritually the force, which comes in yoga, we describe it coming from our crown, very aptly put in Maslow's theory, right at the top of this triangle. Okay. We hail from different parts of the world and different cultures. So if I get woo-woo with you, I'm sorry, just please tiptoe with me here. Ancient scriptures describe our energy levels as residing outside our physical body. You may have seen this diagram, and what it's telling you is that we have a physical, which is what you can feel and touch, your skin, your body, right? And just outside of that is something called an etheric force of energy. You could just call these layers of energy, right? Outside of that is emotional, outside of that is your mental, and outside of that is your spiritual. Why are we looking at it this way? Is because we always limit ourselves saying, this is me here, but actually you almost extend and disappear oneness with what is around you. Okay. Why is this important? Because it's important to point out where emotional sits. Emotional sits between our physical and our mental. We're going to now explore why that is important. Okay. But whenever I teach in the Aura experience and I teach people energy management, I teach them to start thinking of how physical actions actually have a different energetic field and a different energetic direction, impact, if you can think of yourself bigger than what you see. It's perception. So nowadays, and this is going back to observations done by the gentleman Jim Lauer, in today's workplace, it is obvious that most people are under stressed physically and spiritually. What does that mean? We're sitting all day long. We're not interacting with people like we used to. We're not exercising, and we're not working this physical state to a point of becoming optimal. Okay. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we're remotely working. We're traveling less. We're running around less. We're just kind of here, and sitting's become the disease. And spiritually, we're under stressed. Under stressed means we're not actually stimulated spiritually. We're either not educated, so we don't know how to stimulate ourselves spiritually, or we don't even know the connection. Okay. The fact is that these two aspects of our energy are underutilized. On the flip side, in most workplaces right now, we are overactive in the space of mental and emotional energy. Okay. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. So when we take that way of thinking and saying, this is my environment, and this is how I personally am also feeling, we're not really optimized. We're not in a place where there is balance in these four so-called quadrants. Okay. A little later in this presentation, we'll talk about how do I optimize and balance between these four types of energy. Here's another thing to think about: alignment of values and decisions. You will always be in dissonance with yourself, and that dissonance will spread from this physical body to your emotional, to your mental, to your world around you, if you don't know what you want and you're not clear about it. What are your values? What do you care about? And what are the goals that underline those values? So alignment between values, goals is step one. Step two is alignment between those and your decisions. When there's alignment between these three things, you will naturally start to see a state of balance, not a state of dissonance. Okay? Because you're doing what you care about. You're investing your time, your money, your resources on the things that you value and that you want and you care about. A lot of us are spending 8 hours a day in a place that does not care about what we value, or we're spending our days, our lives with people who don't have the same value systems and cannot pivot to value what we value, or at least appreciate what we value, and then we are in a state of losing energy. So important, think about that alignment. In the Aura experience, this is one of the first places we start. Amongst the many other things that we do to journey with you, we also look at this area because we really have to use that as sort of this grounding force as we build your mental fitness practice. Now, how do I know how to balance energy? What do I have to do every single day? There are two muscles, and literally there are two. If you can exercise these two muscles in each of those 4 quadrants, you will feel a sense of empowerment to balance. Okay. And you will start to see how this unfolds. There are two things: your ability to grow your awareness and your ability to remain agile. Okay. So when you think about physical, you think about mental, you think about emotional, you think about spiritual, even. Each of those 4 quadrants becomes more within your space or within your span of control when you breed a sense of awareness, a keen sense of awareness and agility in each of those spaces. So let's dive a little deeper. What is that awareness? Awareness is, in very simple terms, is a growing or diminishing state of knowing something. And you can grow your state of knowing, or you can not care about it, and then you won't know anything about it. Okay? So you want to know, and you want to grow your state of awareness about your physical, your mental, emotional, and your spiritual energy. It's a knowledge set that you want to continually grow, because that's what's going to inform you and give you the data points to manage energy every day. Awareness comes in 3 types, and it depends on which book I'm teaching from, but this is the simplest way to look at it. The first 2 types of awareness is peripheral and sensory. Let me simplify this. Peripheral is this background program in your brain. Background, so unconscious. It's unconscious, right? It's like, I'm thirsty, I need to drink. I'm cold, I'm going to go put something on, right? So your sensory awareness tells you, hey, I have the signal from peripheral awareness, and now I'm going to put my sweater on. Okay, whatever it is, you might do something different from me if I feel cold, right? So our response differs from person to person, but a lot of this is happening innately. It's just the human thing that we do. However, there is this third type of awareness, and we hear this word every day, everywhere. We're reading about it, we're hearing about it, but I got to ask you, how many of us got taught self-awareness in school, by our families? Who taught us this idea of self-awareness and how to actually practice it? The first thing you need to know is, what is it? And while it says self, it has something to do with others as well. So first of all, your ability to read and understand how you feel. Not just read like, I am sad, I am depressed, I am angry, but the ability to go underneath that and say, what are the wants and the needs that are making me feel this way? That's called understanding. When you can do that first one, you are emotionally intelligent. However, to exude emotional intelligence, you actually have to be agile. And so your ability to expand your perception of not just what you feel, but also what others feel. So I may look at a situation and say, I'm really inspired by that. And you may look at that situation and go, that's just ethically wrong, right? Whatever the case is, your ability to accept that I think that's inspiring and be with it and stay in the same room with me and come out of it with a response that keeps you and me both positive and inspired is what practicing self-awareness really is. So it has to do with not just you, it has to do with the other and your ability to see the what I call real reality. I'm going to try not to get woo-woo here, but there is this reality, guys. If you can see my hands, I'm like, this is my reality, and your ability to see the real reality. Okay? Not just your own story and your own preferences and that version of reality, but your ability to see other people's reality and how my reality is connected to your reality is your ability to grow self-awareness. This is a skill. This is not something I was born with. This is something that I stumbled on over and over in my early years as an adult. And I wished that somebody had taught me this, not when I was about to become director or AVP and they sent me on a leadership development program for 10K, 20K. And then I came back and I'm like, why are you telling this to me now? Oh, because, we need you to be a self-aware leader. I'm like, I needed to be a self-aware human way back there. And maybe I wouldn't have made some choices that I did. Let's switch to agility. So we talked about awareness. This is agility, right? Part 2 of balancing energy. Agility in its most basic sense is the ability to move quickly. So speed with ease, whether it's physically and it can be even mentally. So what does that look like? Mental agility is the ability to think and draw conclusions quickly. And we get taught this all the time. If you haven't had a boss that says, you got to think on your feet. Yeah, okay, got it. I need to be mentally agile. Did anybody teach us this? How to do this? No. But somewhere along the way, we were educated and then went to work and we got some experience. Maybe we stumbled, we fell, we got divorced. We got some experience and then intuition kicked in. And as our gut brain began to talk, we began to get a bit more mentally agile, being able to decide things quicker. But here's the part that always plays into our ability to think quickly is emotion. Remember that picture of, now it's going to start to make sense, guys. It's going to be coming together. Your physical agility, your mental agility. In between that is your emotional body. You cannot be mentally agile if your emotion and your emotional body is not optimal. Last week, we did a whole webinar on emotional agility. It was such a fantastic session, can I just tell you? And people were so inspired and so great with sharing their life experiences around this. Your ability to accept and flex your emotions is what is going to give you mental agility. Okay, if you want a performance as a human being, you got to start managing emotions and your agility in emotions. So your ability to observe your emotions, here's those lovely taglines: observe, detach. I teach healthy detachment in your experience. Detach, and I detach every second of the day, if not every minute of the day. I might get absorbed, but I know I need to release here. I need to release this and I need to detach from that so that I can put my energy where I need to, and then I can choose. When I can choose and I'm not like, crushing under the pressure of my emotions, then I'm able to respond in a way that keeps me positive, keeps you positive, keeps us inspired. Okay. So we've just talked about agility, emotional agility, mental agility, and we've talked about awareness. Agility and awareness together is a formula for balance, and it is the practice of mental fitness. If any of you have your physical fitness practice, you run every morning, you do yoga every morning, whatever it is that you physically do to move this body and keep it in its most optimal state, it is going to depend on how mentally fit you are. And so this is a connect people are making. If I'm mentally fit, I can stay physically fit. But it doesn't work the other way necessarily. If I'm physically fit, that does not necessarily mean that you will stay mentally fit. So thus, there's this great sense of awareness in the world in general, post-pandemic, about our mental wellness. All right. I don't know if we have time for this, guys. It's 3:43 already. Wow. Okay, I was going to tell you a story about me. We're not going to do that. I actually want to move on here. Maybe in another session. When we go, all I'll say about this slide is that when we go through trauma, when things don't go our way in a big way, all these different layers of energy get destabilized. There is a method to stabilizing, to grounding. And my story was actually going to tell you about a personal event in my life that really threw me off across the board, right? Took me out physically, took me out emotionally, took me out mentally, took me out spiritually. And if you know me well enough, you know it's not easy to shake me spiritually, but it took me out. And I have on my YouTube channel actually a podcast with Nicole Donahue, as well as a whole video I've done on trauma that you can probably look at, in which I tell this story. So subscribe if you haven't gone to it yet. All right, let's write some things down. I'm going to stop sharing here. I would like to ask you these questions. So starting off, and if you can share in your Q&A, how much awareness do you have about your own energy? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here. And I thought I did. Let me do this again. Wow, you guys have been really sharing with me here. You're telling me how in school, not my family, I had to seek mentors to help me develop my self-awareness. And then my CBT helped me connect with my perception, my energy, the locus of my control. Amazing journeys here, people. Thank you so much. Yeah, we lose years of our life like this. So if you could just walk through this exercise, type if you feel comfortable, if you feel like, no, I'm just going to write this down. I'd like you to think about somebody who really inspires you, somebody who, when you're around them, you just want to remain in their presence. And I'd like you to use 2 words in the chat or in the Q&A here and tell me, what are those 2 things that keeps you wanting to stay with them? What is it about their physical, their body language? Let's just talk body language. What do they do physically when they're around you that keeps you wanting to be in their presence? Just name a few things. I can tell you right now, for me, it's when somebody walks in, makes eye contact with me, and has this beautiful smile on their face. Okay? Doesn't matter whether we're in conflict, doesn't matter if, we've got a history, but the fact that they walk into the room and I know that whatever it is, we're going to solve it. What is that physical thing they do that gets you feeling comfortable and safe? Anyone? Oh, very sweet. Thank you. Smiling. Oh, somebody just posted the YouTube channel. I hope everyone can see the Q&A here. My YouTube channel. It's actually, if you can't find it, it's Vishali Joshi videos, and then you'll find the stuff that I was talking about there. Always smiling, always positive. All right. So give me 2 qualities about that person. 2 things that no matter what context you see them in, they have these 2 qualities. They make you feel something. What is it? They make you feel amazing. That's how when somebody makes you feel amazing. What else? Vibrant and positive. Anyone else? Come on, people. We're around inspiring people. I know you are. They hug you. They make you feel at ease. Yes. Oh, thank you. They make you feel that everything's going to be okay. Yes. Okay. And you wonder, like, I look at people like that, my crush is on Simon Sinek, because I'm always drawn to people's way of thinking. What they are and how their brain works is something that just attracts me a lot. So I always look at his body language. And no matter how big he is, when he's talking to you, he's direct. I respond to that, right? He's clear, he's simple, he's direct. There's no wishy-washiness about it, but it's always very humble, encouraging and inviting. Nice. Now think about quickly. Let's flip. What are those things that you feel when you're around another person who you tend to avoid? What are the two things they make you feel? Anybody? I always feel hopeless. When I'm around a certain person, maybe it's, body language even gets me going. I walk into a room and they're like this, or they're like this, and they won't even look up if you're standing over there, right? Like that alone will take the air out of me. I'll be like, oh, I think I'll come back later. All right. So I feel uneasy. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I feel not liked. Yeah. And I know that that's in our head. Maybe the person likes us, but we don't know that, right? Because how we give off energy to other people is going to set them off in a direction we don't intend, right? And that's the message to learn from this. So quickly, I'm just going to share again and finish this presentation off so that we have a chance to kumbaya together, I hope. Oh, here we go. Share. So let's just talk now. Here. The 5 traits of energizing people. These are traits that I look to cultivate in myself every single day, right? They lead by example. They don't talk much. They do. And whatever they do, I see them doing, and I feel like I want to do the same thing. They lead by example. They create safe, collaborative spaces. They are about the us. They're about not me. They're about how do I create community? And how do I make people feel safe? That's going to need emotional intelligence. They are positive, but not positive for the sake of being bubbly and whatever. They're there authentically. Authentic positivity doesn't necessarily mean that they talk aloud and they smile and they laugh and joke. It could even mean that you're an introvert and you can still be authentically positive. They listen actively, ask a lot of questions, they're curious, they don't care to tell you what they think right away. They really actually could walk out of the room and not even tell you what they think. They're there to learn about you. And then they're going to go process it. And then they're going to come and frame what it is that they wanted to share, perhaps wisdom. And they never forget to recognize other people for the baby steps or the big, big, giant steps they take. And on this side of this slide, you will see some of the words that you even use. These are the things that they make other people feel naturally. And it's habitual for them. You know those people that walk into a room and they don't even have to say anything. You walk, they open the door, and you're like, oh, they're here. So nice to see them. Oh, now it's all going to get better. Right? And the most important one that I wanted that you may not have seen here is something called perception of the equal. Right? I may be up here in this organization and you may be here. But if I walk into a room and I can level it, you got performance coming your way better than you ever thought. Okay? So emulate, encourage, energize. Let's turn that around. What about those people and places that drain energy? I could talk a whole hour about the behaviors that this descending staircase shows you about constant negativity, e.g., complaining all the time, focusing on the problem. Emotional vampirism. It's like, I just need constant validation. And no matter how much you put in, that well has no end, right? So you're around this person, you're just depleted because you've just done everything in your power to validate them. Not knowing your own boundaries is going to lead to you getting depleted. Why? Because people are going to violate those boundaries. And there are people who do that, and there are places that do that. Excessive neediness, emotional codependency, passive aggression, deep sense of insecurity, right? Isolation, not talking to you now. Days go by, I'm leaving, I don't know when I'm going to come back. passive aggression. And then here's one that competitive. You try to have a balanced discussion and they're in competition with you already. They're either getting defensive and they want to point to somebody else, or they want to one-up you. Hey, I had the greatest coffee today. Oh, you haven't tried anything yet. Wait, have you been to this place? And you're like, no, never heard about that place. And already you're thinking, why did I even bother telling them about my great coffee? Right? Competitive. So some of the things you feel around in the purple over there on the side. So these are people who are self-absorbed, or places that are stuck and stagnant in ancient ways, in their own old ways, and are not evolving and dynamic. If you go into one of these places, you too are going to become this way. Guys, there's going to be a recording of this. Please don't even try to capture. Maybe get your phone and take a picture of this, right? Habits, everyday habits in these 4 quadrants will get you. Maybe you go through this and sit there with a checklist and am I doing this? Am I doing that? No, I'm not doing this. I'm definitely not doing this. That exercise alone is going to tell you why there is a lack of balance and perhaps overstressing in certain areas and understressing in others. Okay. Only thing I'm going to point out here is notice where breath work and meditation are in every quadrant. As part of our experience, and one of the key differentiators in our mental fitness practice that we teach, we actually teach huge amounts of mindfulness techniques that not only sit on a mat when you practice them, but they actually integrate with your mindset. And it's really important that they work for you. They don't just remain on that mat in the morning in your peaceful la space. They actually come into play every day. That's when it's practical. That's when it's powering you. So yes, there are these 4 quadrants and things that you can do every day. But here's a simpler thing to look at. How do I conserve energy? No surprise. I want to stay present, conscious, disciplined, grounded, inspired, focused, and open. If I want to do that, I need to have a mental fitness practice. Second thing, anchor your choices and your decisions in clear values and goals. If they're wishy-washy, if they're changing every month, it's hard to stay grounded and feel like you're making progress. And that in itself is depleting. Minimize the number of decisions. Somebody taught me this last year. It was one of the best things. And it's not that I wasn't doing it before, but consciously. By putting structures and routines and habits in place, I've become, I think, a superhuman in that regard, is that I establish as much structure and routine as I can. You know why? Because I don't want to wake up in the morning anymore and think about the same thing over and over and decide every day. I'm not going to decide what time I go and work out. I know when I work out. I'm not going to decide what time I have to get up because I know what I have to do when I get up, so I have to get up at this time. Predictability in your day conserves energy. Conserve your words. Silence is golden. Don't feel silenced. Know the difference, but conserve your words. Okay. Repetitive talk. And I do this too. When you're anxious, especially, you will repeat yourself. Notice that. We all do it. And these, friends, as I'm about to close off here and look at your questions at the end of this session, are the 6 questions I ask myself every night. And what I do is I have this scale of 1 to 5. And I literally go and score myself on these 6 things every night. And then I take an average out of 5. And I hold myself accountable like this. It gives me the motivation and the data points to remain persistent the next day. And it keeps me brutally honest with myself. Okay. If you liked what you saw here today, this was very much skimming the top surface level of our experience. You can come and speak to me about how this applies in your life. If there's something you're being challenged about, you want to just sort of brainstorm about what does this even mean for you in your context and what you're kind of challenged with, always feel free to come and book a strategy call with me. It's book.meetandbuy.com. I just love to explore with people because it's amazing. Those answers are all within you. but there's so much stuff on top of that. So we do a big uncovering exercise around that. And we're very proud to say that while we launched our flagship program, Aura Experience, last year, we're actively working to launch Aura Teams and Aura Youth for corporations, and as well as youth, mainly in sort of the high school and post-secondary demographic. Questions. I'm going to stop sharing ideas even. I love ideas, so please. Let's come back to you. I feel like I am in the universe. Good. A sense of connectedness. Questions I can take. Any key lessons you took from this that was like this aha moment? Share that with me, please. Thank you. Thank you. I am who I am, and I know what I say here because of the energy that I choose to exude. And because that energy elicits a certain type of energy, it's become innate to me now. It's practice every day, right? This is all it is. It's practice. It's awareness, agility, practice. What's the best way to meet? book.meetandvia.com. Type that into your and you know, feel free to reach out to me on any of my, like, DM me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and I can even give you that link. It's on our website. You can look it up there. You can connect with me there. Quick tips on how to expand your BPT. Yes, it will naturally happen once you're aware of what it is and you start to do some of the things I talked about. You will notice that your capacity is going to increase, your focus is going to increase. And when that starts happening, that window starts getting naturally. Okay, mine was not always like 5 a.m. to noon. It wasn't. And I'm teaching my son this, by the way. He's 14. I'm teaching him this stuff, breath work and stuff, right? Because it's giving him a sense of capacity. Thank you for putting that in the chat there, meetandvia.com, book.meetandvia.com. You gave me an alignment process to improve my energy management and not time. I'm grateful that I did that. Awesome. All right, 1 minute passed. Reach out to me if you have any more questions. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will meet up again soon, next week. Actually, I'm doing an amazing other webinar, so watch out for that. All right, everyone, have a great night, and I will see you in another day in another place.